We start? You should wait for Amber to come back.
Wayne is supposed to be here, so it might be running a little bit late or maybe something happened.
Okay.
One more minute or so.
Usually he's the first one.
I know.
Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, he is usually the first one.
He's usually here by then. He's excited.
I didn't get a chance to call you, talk to you. Are you thinking you might stay on the PC or your term's up here this end of this month?
Still undecided at this.
Okay.
I have been, I just with you, when I got that email, I was in my head, I was like, trying to start in May. So I'm gonna go, so, yeah, I'm thinking about it all. I'll let you know.
So Victoria, and there's somebody else that was coming up.
Jake.
Jacob.
Able to attend the last meeting of this month.
Okay.
It will be the fourth.
Oh, that's a much better choice, I think.
I'm the part one.
That's weird. I can't write or write it.
We were. Do those tickets where you can pull them and go back fast, or they. That's the way to work it is, because then you know exactly what time to show back up.
Three fast passes for 3 hours. They're like 20 seconds. So
Yeah.
what part are you? You're doing the whole parts?
6 days.
I just 2 days. We had all the
Then there's like Universal, the MGMs.
now you're like
Different part. It's been a long time since I've been there.
he's doing Disney World, so there's like Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios,
Wow.
so there's good costumes. We have some good costumes.
When you were just there, we stayed right there. Oh my gosh, they loved that. They thought that was about right.
We stayed in a hotel where you could see Epcot. You didn't even have to in the park. You could see all the fireworks right there from the
Wow.
hotel. It's fantastic. There's people.
Experiences versus. Yeah, yes.
And what about Victoria? Do we know? Is she in Victoria?
We think we have you in Florida.
Hey there, Lane. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sir.
All right. Now that Lane's here, we can start.
That's right.
Welcome to the January 14th meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll do a roll call. Let's start down there, David.
David Merrick, District 3.
Lansing Home District 2. Todd Queen District 1.
Jacob Gray, District 3.
Wayne Bonus, District 2.
Kate Darlington, District 3.
Cindy Watson, District 1.
Sean Gardner, Planning Department.
Brittany Haney, Planning Department.
Everett Neal, Planning Department, Code Compliance.
All right. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda they would like to propose or anything they want to add to the agenda tonight? No. All right, we have meeting minutes from September 10th to approve.
We all remember what happened that night.
Does anyone remember? Those. Anyone?
Too many of us that can make motion.
Do we need to go back and look at them to refresh ourselves or?
There were a lot of people absent, I was going down, so
Yeah.
I didn't see any changes.
Whenever.
I didn't see any changes to it. I looked
Yeah.
it over.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minute from September 10th.
All right. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Meeting minutes from September 10th are approved. So next up is our work session. I'll hand it over to staff to talk about land use code revisions that we're looking at. Seems like the bulk of tonight will be battery energy storage systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So I assume you all received the email I sent you on December 31st, kind of giving the a preview of what's to come here in the next couple of months. The petition against the adoption of the 24 land use code was denied by the Colorado Supreme Court. So I anticipate that the commissioners and Robbie will want us to get any land use code amendments and revisions adopted as soon as possible, but there's a lot of work to do still on them, especially with the battery energy storage regs. I think the natural medicine business regulations we worked on are all ready to go. I have a kind of a short list, I think 3 pages of some minor land use code revisions. And then there's these battery energy storage system facility regs. And then there may be some other revisions associated with the wildland urban interface, the WUBI code, the fire codes, but that's still a conversation happening in the background. But so yeah, when we last met, we had, I think, 2 work sessions about the battery energy storage system regs, and I think we did a good job. We had like 3 staff iterations, 3 drafts that we went through as staff. Then we brought it to the planning commission. You all had 2 work sessions, and I think we got it pretty far down to like the 10 or 5 yard line, so to speak. But we had a couple of technical questions. Just to remind you, we were not sure about how plume modeling ought to relate to setbacks and site approval standards. That was a big kind of a question mark. And then also the incorporation of NFPA standard 855, whether or not we could do that, which is still a bit of an outstanding question to the county attorneys. So those 2 questions I brought to the commissioners after our work sessions, and well, also with a request to consider maybe imposing a moratorium, which they chose to do on October 21st. They imposed a moratorium on the processing of BESS applications. So that bought us some time here, but we need to wrap this up. But then I posed those other questions, technical questions, and requested some help, some technical help, or to be able to contract some technical help. And we ended up contracting somebody to help, and instead of it necessarily answering those 2 particular questions, it resulted in a whole second edition, which created a lot of work. So it kind of forced us to choose to move forward with this like new second edition, or to somehow reconcile it with the first edition. And to be frank, I mean, the second edition was a lot more generalized. Todd, you happened to see it, I think, because you're at another meeting where that was shared out at that time, but we really didn't have much staff review of that. It happened mostly in the consultant's hands, and then we got it, and then we were passing it around to try to get some feedback and input on it. And I think it was a bit premature, because when we started to compare them, there were a lot of things left out of that were really felt like really necessary from the first edition. So I just recently worked at integrating them and basically laid them out and accounted for everything that was not, brought over from the first edition and the second, things that were left out, and then looked at new things that were in the second edition that look beneficial. And those things are highlighted yellow in the packets that you have. So anything highlighted yellow came from this new second edition. Everything that's not highlighted is just what was in the first edition that we've already reviewed. Okay? So really, and then here's a couple of changes that I made. When I brought them together, another thing that we had discussed when we reviewed that first edition was the distinction between tier 1 and 2, which we felt like was kind of collapsed over our review into obsolescence. It wasn't really meaningful or important. But the second edition provided some different categories for battery energy storage. They grouped them in residential and then commercial industrial as an accessory to business or something like that, and then utility scale, which we thought was rather useful. And so I incorporated that in. But by taking out the tier 1 and 2 distinction, it necessitated a bit of a reorganization of that first edition. So I've reorganized the outline, if you will. But in doing that, I made sure to account for all the content that it made its way over in the new formatted outline. Does this make sense?
Did they provide a definition of what you consider to be accessory?
Yes. So on the probably the last page there, your pack of this combined version, I'll refer to it as, there should be definition of, yeah.
So it could be
13 or
any
14.
size.
No, there's still restrictions.
No, we'll go through that. I think that's one of the parts we should definitely review and understand clearly. I wish I had a good way of approaching this and biting it off, but I just think we just got to kind of go back through it again and pay attention to the highlighted yellow parts primarily. Any questions?
I might have missed it, and I don't know if it's really that important, but are the 2 editions from 2 different consultants?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The first edition, our consultant was John Washbush. He was the county administrator, like Robbie's role in Montrose County for a number of years. He's AICP, certified planner. I thought he did a really good job, and he worked very closely with us. And, we went through 3 drafts with him. And then the second one was an organization, Logan Simpson, out in Weld County somewhere. Yeah. I think in particular, setbacks, these definitions of these different categories are important to look at. Do you have another copy? If you don't, that's fine. I got it mine here. That handy. Yeah, analog. That's great. I'm sorry, I'm looking to see where in the world, oh, well, basically, I guess the place where, the different categories gets expressed is in table 2B. So, of course, I didn't fill out, what zones we want what in, because that's always the last to be determined factor. But we can start in the back, if you will, and we can go through those definitions. So there's the battery energy storage system definitions: a rechargeable energy storage system consisting of electrochemical, kinetic, thermal, or other form of energy storage technology, battery chargers, controls, power conditioning systems, and associated electrical equipment designed to store energy to supply electrical energy at a future time to a structure or provide electrical grid related services. Any questions about that? What about, I'm ignorant about all the forms of energy storage, but there's a lot of them. There's hydro, there's hydrogen. There's, what else?
It's actually, it's a continuing science that continues.
Yeah,
So every time we get one list done, there's another list coming out. Kind of hard to nail down.
residential BESS is a BESS used as an accessory to residential structures in all use zones. Well, that's a carryover from that second edition, which is what they were proposing, and I think that that's appropriate. But that's to be determined in table 2B. Residential BESS is typically 1 kilowatt hour to 20 kilowatt hour integrated into the electrical system of a house or residential solar structure. Any comments on that?
Typically, these things kind of open.
Typically,
The
what?
word typically,
I didn't still hear your question.
it leaves things kind of open.
Typically on
The
the vague
phrasing.
statement.
Is as far as a definition. Residential BESS is 1 kilowatt. A
You think
BESS
the
is
word typically?
classified as residential. When it is sized between 1 kilowatt hour to 20 kilowatt hour.
That's a good catch, because those are the phrases I don't catch or the vague one.
You got it?
Typically, I think leaves it
All right.
open for interpretation.
Okay.
Somebody's considering, this is residential. Like,
Thank
dude, it's 100 KW, it ain't residential. Like, well, typically they're between that range, but mine's not.
And again, we're trying to avoid interpretation.
Sure.
I like it. You would recommend remove
Right.
typically.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Commercial, industrial, accessory BESS, a BESS used as an accessory to other commercial or industrial infrastructure. Is that too general? There are also, in other parts of the code, restrictions on the size of, commercial.
And there's also safety language in there indicating it doesn't mean that if it's a commercial that's large, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be reported as for the LETC and stuff. There's a language in there, safety language, hey, if it's big, it doesn't mean you won't report it.
And then utility scale, a BESS and all components utilized to store a large quantity of energy for the greater power grid. Utility scale BESS are standalone projects that exceed 100 kilowatt hours or 1 acre of land, are accessories to other energy projects, and are connected into the electrical grid.
I'm a little confused about the phrasing of they are a standalone project. And they are accessories to other energy projects. To me, those are without knowing. Without being well versed in any of these projects. What does a
Which
standalone
project
project
we're
word?
looking for.
What does standalone mean, and is that contradictory to them being accessories to other energy projects?
Well, the next phrase is.
Like,
or
I
accessory.
guess is it a confusion of how, is this list? Is it a utility scale BESS is either a standalone project that exceeds 100 kilowatts or 1 acre? Or is any project that is an accessory to other energy projects? And or can, you know what I mean? Like what are those commas? How are those commas grouping these things?
Is it an or an
Yeah.
and conjunction? Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little
I think
confused
that
by the phrasing.
the typical idea for it was also, imagine like Garnet Mesa Solar.
Mhm.
So it's an already solar project, but it has no battery.
Battery, sure.
So then you're adding it to that as an accessory for an already existing large solar facility. So it doesn't, a standalone means it doesn't have a solar facility with it. But if it's an accessory to the large solar grid like Garnet Mesa, it's an accessory.
Okay, so I think this needs to be reworded a little bit, either to be like a list or a and or
In that vein, the last clause of are connected to the electric grid. If it's connected to the electric grid, does it automatically get bumped up to utility? Because what if there's a commercial scale? Presume those would also be connected to the grid. Unless those are just. standalone. So that's another question is it
Yeah.
automatically connected to the grid? Because there's probably gonna be residential buses that could tie in as well, could Tesla battery wall. So,
I read it as it has to be both. Including the electrical.
so all three of them, or
To me, if it's not connected to an electrical grid, it's not a utility. Scale.
scale.
But I see the jigs.
But, yeah.
There are gonna be residential best that will be, they'll be doing net metering, they'll be tied into the grid.
Okay, net metering, does that count as, yeah, I see,
But if it exceeds 100 kWh or 1 acre of land. Are accessories to other energy projects and are connected to the electrical grid, then it becomes utility scale. If it meets those three conditions. Is the way I read that definition.
right, they're ands connected by. Does it work that way, or does it still
To
pose a
me-
problem?
To me, and if all of those three conditions have to exist, then. To me, there's a contradiction between our standalone projects and our accessories to other energy
I'm
products.
just strike standalone.
Yeah,
Strikes.
I don't know why standalone needs to be there.
Is
really.
our PA system not working tonight? Because from here, Bill can come here.
I don't know, is there a way to turn it up?
The audience requests.
Well, we can try to turn it.
Is red,
I don't know where
Red
it
is
is.
on.
red's hot.
So you suggest striking standalone? Okay. That's it for, well, no, there's more definitions, sorry, that's page there. Then it's just National Fire Protection Association definition and NFPA standard 855, and that's from the first edition we had. Do we need to review those? Is that good? Okay,
So, some groups that we can use for the residential best.
mm-hmm,
Would be systems with a nameplate energy storage capacity of no more than 20 kWh that are permanently connected to the electrical system in single family or multifamily residential dwelling or to an on-site residential solar system serving that dwelling.
all right, you're gonna have to
You're gonna
copy
have
and
to
paste
copy
that, send that,
and paste.
yeah, I didn't catch that. Just send it to my email and I'll poke it in there, thank you.
What happens if
What?
it's a residential system that's greater than 20 kWh, but is not a commercial? Someone might argue is not a commercial or industrial project.
And I think the upper limit maybe is debatable. I mean, 20 kWh.
It's a multifamily, isn't it? I don't know anything about this, but. Presumably, the commercial industrial BESS are gonna have, some more regulation around them.
I think the way it works out is
To be allowed in different zones.
utility scale that is, subject to the full, regulations.
So I guess that's the question without going through all this.
Yeah,
Are there separate, specific standards for these three separate categories, or is it mostly a zoning? Is it mostly a table 2B thing where they're
no,
or
there's another section, and I apologize, I don't know exactly where it's at, that has a reference to the residential, or I mean, the commercial, and how it could be subject to various
Might be
standards.
worse when.
Oh. I just got it together somehow in time. But, but I put the question, what if residential goes over 20? But, if you can send me the rest of what you read there, where'd you get that language from, Tom?
ChatGPT.
I was gonna say, that's a chat GPT.
Okay.
Yeah, Was a
Did I say you-
sentence with lots of
You
numbers.
didn't come off with that off the top of your head, because I've been scratching on these forever. I didn't.
No, but the nameplate values.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's that actual designation. Because none of us being electrical engineers, so that's over our head.
In 20
Okay,
kW would give you 240 volts at 83 amps. Which
Which
is
is not very big.
not huge. I mean, if you went to 24 kW, it'd give you 100 amp service at 240 volts. Like that's probably.
Maybe we should look at about 20 kilowatt hours, look at what we actually think the upper limit should be if we're putting a strict limit and not a typically limit.
For the DMA net meter policy is 25 kW is their system.
Okay.
Which I know KW and KW hour are not the same thing, but perhaps matching with. What sense,
What would they take up on this?
their 20 kW system is, they get into commercial.
That's a
Good, yeah.
So
Can you send that to us too?
yeah,
that's what Paul's gonna do.
yeah, sure.
That would help a lot.
For net metering is 25.
KW.
Okay. All right. If we go back up then to the top now. The applicability section, we could begin there. I mean, that is all the same as what was there before in the first edition. It basically that battery energy storage shall be subject to being processed pursuant to conditional use permit process.
Does that need to specify? Do we need to exclude residential from that?
Well, all right, let's go ahead up to point 1. Sorry. The requirements of this section shall apply to battery energy storage systems within unincorporated Delta County, whether cited as a standalone facility or co-located with other energy generation and or transmission infrastructure. Battery or energy storage systems shall be subject to and processed pursuant to conditional use permit process of the Delta County Land Use Code. I suppose we need to provide more definition around which ones are going to be subject to conditional use, because later it says that residential and commercial are actually allowed use, which is in the exceptions. So maybe we don't have to, let's just go through all the way to exceptions. So point 3, battery energy storage systems shall be designed and comply with the criteria set forth in these use specific standards, as well as the standards of the Land Use Code, Chapter 4, Site Design and Environmental Stewardship. Exceptions. And I wonder if point 3 isn't redundant too. Once we get further down, it might find that really Chapter 4, Site Design and Environmental Stewardship is accounted for in many ways in some of the use specific standards outlined later. Exceptions. The requirements of this use specific section shall not apply to any battery energy storage system located on state or federal lands. All public documentation for federal and state permitting within the county shall be shared with the county during their permitting process. So that, highlighted yellow part came from the second edition, and we plugged it in there. Residential BESS and commercial accessory BESS is considered a use by right and is not required to submit a conditional use permit. I don't know why it's in the single it should be R. It might have been just when I was pulling it over, maybe it only referred to one or the other, I don't know. And is not required to submit a conditional use permit. All residential BESS and commercial accessory BESS must meet the development standards for all BESS types and may be subject to reporting requirements under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act and or locally adopted ordinances. I don't know if that's a problem.
That's the safety language for, just because it's an allowed by right, doesn't mean you shouldn't let your fire departments and people who are coming to a possible structure fire or something that, you know, again, that's that part of that. Just know what's there before you get there, so.
I'm not trying to get the car or the. Get ahead of ourselves here, but what did this consultant go up the model? Like, go out back and remove our ability.
They added it as a part of the considerations for the site approval and setbacks.
Not apply to.
Right, I think that saying that those are subject to development standards for all best types is a problem. Because when we get down there, we'll see those standards would be pretty hard to comply with with the residential battery energy storage. I can just make that note for now, and then we can go, when we go through that, we can go back up there and see what we could do with that. This could be also because of combined versions, right? This came from a version that was, you know, envisioning a different, you know, set of maybe standards or, you know, categorization of battery energy storage facility types, so.
I have trouble with the inconsistency of AII that says they shall be subject to the pursuant to conditional use permit, and then accepting them out right below.
Yeah, it seems like a strange way to,
I think up above it should just, I get that it only applies to an industrial
Yeah.
Or a utility.
well, like,
utility, okay. So maybe you put up there, you add the utility vests shall be subject to the process as a conditional use permit.
That's a good cap.
I think this is largely a problem for me combining two additions that weren't, you know, that haven't been utterly harmonized yet.
Okay. Well,
But yeah.
Is it right there?
All right. I just threw in, you know, to restrict that to utility scale.
Okay.
I do think that needs to be cleaned up. I mean, we don't want residential battery energy storage, I think, subject to all the development standards that we're about to get into either, but we can see. Because like the first point of development standards is it's subject to NFPA 855. So the following use standards apply to all utility scale BESS, right? So that would harmonize well with Dave's suggestion above. And shall be demonstrated within the permit application of the facilities. First point, installation, design, maintenance, and safety standards. So it references section 4.5 through 4.9.4 of NFPA standards, and that's in your, did we hand those out too? So
Yeah.
These are the 2023 edition, but it gives you some reference to like what's in there in that section of the code.
this is always my question about referencing other standards and specific dates, like.
Yes.
Can we say, you know, subject to the most current version of this?
Or
standard?
just say 855 regs, and that would include any update, any changes. Just
Yeah.
get out the section, just say subject to 855 regs.
I think some of the complexity with that is that we're referencing specific sections. And so if future editions update, then those section references might change. And then maybe that's why the 2023 edition is specifically referenced, because then it's a sort of a stamp in time of which, you know, requirements we're specifically referring to. And to just generally refer to 855, it's a 120-page document. I'm not sure if every aspect of it is that could be a problem.
Also, for inspection purposes, I don't believe and I think maybe Jake knows more about this than I do, Jacob. The standards don't get grandfathered. Right, and when it comes to electrical code, plumbing code, when new code comes up, if it's coming in, it has to meet the new standard for inspection. So I mean, I think there's a standard there for when people do inspections. It's not for, if I'm going to a Beth facility, I'm not gonna gauge it on the 23, it's gonna be on the 855 current. Because that's part of the licensing and inspection process.
I have that question exactly though, Kate, to
I guess, I don't know.
to the attorneys. I mean, the first question is, can we incorporate by reference an FPA 855? And second question is, if we eliminate the 2023 edition reference, is there a better way of doing this when we're trying to cite a specific section?
Mhm.
And maybe
Or
we
is it
could
just
take the title of the section or something
upon the county to update our code?
when that gets updated. Yeah, maybe so. Okay, anything else? Go into setbacks and site requirements? See a lot of people looking very intently at their screens or documents.
Good. We're working at a work session.
That's good, yeah.
EPA reserves the right to remove all these standards as part of the water code organization.
It's a standard electrical inspection requirement that they have to go to current code.
Yeah, it says local adoption is tied to a specific edition, just the standard. So how we have them to 2023 is according to, we did just 855, that only means something in the 2023 edition. It may be something completely different in the 2027 edition. They do it every 3 years.
Okay,
Maybe we won't have this done by the time the 2026 edition comes out. We do it.
I think the draft and it's slated to be adopted.
Yeah, maybe we could
Yeah.
flag that as
go back and
last
review
minute
all the,
update if there's a new
okay.
2026 edition out.
It's one of the biggest questions that we have in all of this really is how do we incorporate it? And can we incorporate it?
And the attorneys just haven't provided feedback about that.
Well, they gave some good attorney answers. They were like, kind of
Yeah,
inconclusive.
and I did have a follow-up conversation with John. And based on our conversation, he's fairly confident that it is not out of the standard or unusual to reference by model. It doesn't mean we have to adopt the 855.
Right,
Basically, you're looking at, as we're referencing a model criteria to model your designs from, and this is the standard we want you to use.
Can we not approve a project based on their non-compliance with that reference code?
I think that as long as we have that in here, that's the point. Because when I talked to John, the difference between adoption and referencing by model, we obviously can't adopt it because we don't have the qualifications to have our own, but even then, you can still, all inspections are done, and so you can contract an inspector to inspect to local code. So the idea is we're saying this is our model that we want you to follow without adopting it. He's fairly certain that this is a viable approach based on saying, hey, this is not that we're adopting the code. This is the expectation that we have. Because they're obviously going to have their own electrical inspections, their own state licensing inspections are going to take place. We're saying we want you to model it on that in preemptive plan that you will have to pass inspection. And to do that, it's going to be on the current regs. Yep. Next time.
thank you. Setbacks, utility scale best facilities shall be set back at least 100 feet from non-participating landowner property lines. 1,000 feet from any public and park lands unless waived by the respective management agency. 1,500 feet from the property line of any property that is zoned A5, A2.5, or Res 1. And then this last clause here, I added, or that has a residential tax assessment indicating residential use of the property. That comes from the confined animal feeding operation portions of our regs. That if you have a large animal feeding operation, the setbacks are not from a residential structure, they're from the property line of a property that is assessed residential use. And I think the logic to that is that you don't want to preemptively, you know, make it so that that person can't build a house in that part of their property. You know, or
Restrict their land use.
restrict their land use. That's a better way to put it. But that's, you know, something for you to consider. Then the next one, 100 feet from the edge of the county and state right of ways unless waived by the managing agency. And then the last one, demonstrable distance to mitigate results identified in the plume model required in this land use code. Hazard mitigation analysis, which modeled dispersion events determined to necessitate evacuation of occupied structures, shall be the basis for denial of a conditional use permit application.
So do we want B and D to be the same wordage? Like one says waived by the respective management agency. And then D says unless waived by the managing agency. Does it,
No.
Okay,
does
Yeah,
it
we
matter?
just strike
I'm just asking, it
respective.
just seems kind of a different wordage. I didn't know that was a,
okay, we can strike respective to make it.
it was more of just a question.
That's good observation.
Yeah, we don't need two different.
It almost sounds like the public and park has a different
Yeah,
waiver than the county and state.
Yeah. Well, this is a really, you know, important one and a real critical one. It's the one that's gonna get beat up the most, I would think, from, you know, any application. But I mean, point E puts a pretty restrictive, you know, setback, standard in here. And that may be something that will get pushed back on a lot through the process, you know, so how much do you want to stand on this?
It's also not incredibly, it's not definitive, you know, demonstrable and mitigate are both somewhat up for debate within each application, you know, what is mitigation? And what does it mean to demonstrate something? It's hard for me to like fully consider this without a good like case study, and it's clearly the plume model depends so much on the specific location and size of and design of the system. But without experience in this, like, I just have a hard time conceptualizing whether a plume modeling would allow for any, you know, what it would really look like for someone to do this.
I did forget to mention that the next work session we'll have at the end of the month, we'll have some equipment vendors and an education specialist from SEI present.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't have much more information than that. I'll try to get more information and we'll see if we can get anybody that's maybe a plume model expert that could speak as well.
And obviously, if this goes, you know, to vote and to be adopted, there'll be a chance for members of the public to speak to these things, but I'm wondering if we can, or, you know, it sounds like you have talked to people at SEI and some of these vendors, like if you have shown them any of this and just like, is this, you know, reasonable to you? Does this line up with other counties you work in? Like,
I am sharing it out a little to get that kind of feedback. I shared out that second edition with some developers and they were like, this is way too general and you should leave in NFPA 855. It's the standard. So yeah, it'll go through that process. And you're right, this leaves it a little open for, you know, proving that you can mitigate the effects of the toxic plume.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it probably would have helped. I thought, I forgot. I pulled up, if you look at the internet and look at images of plume modeling, it's a dispersion chart and graph of sorts. Let's just imagine a hot spot in the middle, different colors, showing the amount of hazardous material as it dissipates over distance.
Sure, but knowing nothing about this process, I have no idea how to gauge how far that goes out and what is reasonable and how toxic it is and.
Did that to the plume model, I forgot to get it, I meant to get you guys a quick, a generic one that someone had for something else.
Mhm.
And I forgot, I apologize, because it probably would help a lot, this conversation.
Down on page 7 of 14 are the hazard mitigation analysis and plume modeling standards. So in that, there's some points in there, that's number 2, worst case scenario, point D. It says model distance of dispersion with concentration levels referencing EPA acute exposure level guidelines and American Industrial Hygiene Association emergency response planning guidelines. So your plume model is going to show here are the toxic, whatever materials, gases, whatever is, and here are the what the density or
The dispersion rate.
the toxicity level of those, and where's the boundaries of those. That's what the model is going to show. Like up to this point, they're toxic, according to these standards, the EPA acute exposure level guidelines, and then past that, supposedly they're not, or whatever. So
could we be more specific, like mitigating toxicity results from plume modeling? Is there a particular plume model that we're looking to use or have considered using, or?
it just is the standards down there in that part that specify how the plume model is to be.
Where was that?
It's on page 7. Yeah, it might be worth just popping down there and going through that part, since it's so critical up in the setbacks.
Is that they're using federal and agency standards for toxicity rates.
Yeah, the model standards are a hazard mitigation analysis, including dispersion plume modeling, is required for all utility scale battery energy storage systems. At a minimum of the HMA shall comply with the requirements of this section of standard 855, which incorporated by reference. And then there's the worst case scenario. In addition to the NFPA standards, dispersion analysis shall model and analyze a worst case scenario for fire and anticipated suppression activities at the facility and include project specific identification of toxins of concern for the facility type, assumptions of the modeled event scenarios. So they got to tell us what were all your assumptions on weather patterns or what. Atmosphere, I guess, and how much of the facility has experienced a thermal runaway and all that. Atmospheric and wind conditions typical of the site as incorporated in the modeling. Modeled distance of the dispersion with concentration levels referencing the EPA and the AIHA standards or guidelines. Modeling using Cameo or Marplot software, including description of methodology used. Additional modeling utilizing other software may also be provided. And then statement of qualifications from the preparing entity or individuals.
Back on page 3. I just think in terms of our verbiage on point E, we could probably align that with the point with page 7. Instead of saying plume model, we should say hazard mitigation analysis.
Okay.
Because we don't have a definition for plume model anywhere else. I mean, it sort of is included in there, but.
Okay.
Tells them to get ready, look for it, and like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The language came from 2 different editions, so yeah, it's good. Okay.
then the sentence after that. In section E, the HMA with model dispersion events determined necessary evacuation shall be a basis for denial. Well. I feel like it's kind of implied that if they cannot demonstrate, they do not have demonstrable distance to mitigate results, then it would be a denial. It would just, it'd save you an extra sentence.
So that's saying. Any flume model that shows that anyone would need to be evacuated from structures, you know, nearby would, doesn't say it. Shall be basis for denial.
Sorry, language from two editions, right? The highlighted one and this one, so they're not,
That will indicate which house you're willing to sacrifice in the event of the worst case scenario. Or are you willing to risk any?
Right.
And the condition for denial would be that if you risk someone else, we're gonna deny.
are you just suggesting we kind of reword all of point E a little bit to get it?
Kind of
to-
like language in the land use code for, if you don't do this, you're gonna be denied.
Yeah.
It seems a bit out of place, whereas we usually list things in the affirmative that if you meet this condition, we get approved.
I mean, you could also show a model in which like the technician that's on site has to evacuate. You know, does that mean that it should be denied? Like any, you know, evacuation of any occupied structures needing to be evacuated in the model, like that doesn't really even account for the structures on site.
Right,
So yeah, I think the first sentence kind of covers what we're talking
Yeah.
about, is demonstrable distance to mitigate the results. And then because of those two,
okay.
Yeah.
So if I just bring hazard mitigation analysis up there, gonna, you know, better define what we mean, the plume model.
Yeah,
Use the same
I
language.
agree. I don't think we need to have that second part. It seems
Okay,
pretty specific.
okay. All right, good. That's good. Good thinking. All right, does anybody else want to read? I mean, I don't have to do this, I just.
we take the big bucks to read.
Okay, all right, well. Are we good then on all those setback and site requirement standards? Can we move to the next section? All right. Would you mind making a note on that second sentence on that to just like maybe remove it?
I'm making, I got it.
Alright.
Right on here, too aggressive and we should probably rephrase.
Okay,
I don't think rephrase, I think just take it out.
Yeah, I mean, either way, just that it's too aggressive, you can work with it.
all right, got it. FEMA floodplain, no component of a battery energy storage system shall be located within the mapped area of a 500-year floodplain as mapped and delineated by FEMA. A 50-foot setback must be maintained during construction and operation unless a floodplain permit is obtained from the county and state. So, the 50-foot setback, I don't know what that's necessarily referring to because that's again coming from another edition. Do we need that? Or is the first sentence sufficient? It just can't be in the 500. Normally, you don't permit things in the 100-year floodplain, which is that 1% chance. The 500-year floodplain is really pretty far
A
from,
lot broader.
yeah. Is it,
Are we gonna see any of these in our county with 1,500-foot setbacks from property lines and 500-year floodplains?
is it too restrictive with those two? I don't know.
You just strike the highlighted.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that came from
agree.
the other version.
yeah. I didn't use a lot of discrimination in pulling these over. I just, if it was novel and seemed beneficial, I kind of put it in there, highlighted it. But you all agree with striking that highlighted
Yeah.
portion?
Yeah.
Okay,
I do.
great.
And where does that 500-year come from? Was that just,
It's FEMA maps, they're,
right, I understand their FEMA maps, but where did the?
Oh.
our
Who
idea-
decided the 500?
We decided that.
Or is it? All right.
John Washbush. leave that in there.
And I can't remember if that was referenced to the 855. I apologize. I should have it up so I could search it if I didn't bring it.
I got it up, but I'm reading. All right, irrigated farmland. Best facilities, again, we've been through this one, you know, it's all not highlighted, so we kind of determined this before that we were okay with this, but best facilities shall not be located on irrigated farmland, primary agricultural farmland, or farmland of state-wide importance as defined by NRCS. So there are maps that define this. We get this argument all the time, taking out farmland, you know, or prime agricultural farmland, but then you go to the NRCS map and it doesn't show that. It just is nice farmland, but it's not prime agricultural farmland according to their classification. When a project is proposed to be located on agricultural designated lands, the project application shall include an agricultural management plan that adequately demonstrates continuation of agricultural operations given the site conditions. Best facilities should be designed to minimize loss of irrigated ground and shall maintain irrigation to surrounding properties, including access of rights of way and easements. Good with all that?
This still is just pertaining to industrialness.
Yeah. This is all for utility based.
And this is all under setbacks and site requirements, right? And I kind of organized the outline here, so if it doesn't work, we can, you know, move it around in another part of the outline.
The only reason I ask is because it just says best facilities. Where in other areas
Okay.
we're specifying utility
right.
scale best.
Yeah, best utility scale best. Okay. Let me throw that in there. Thank you. Good job. All right, design standards. Interconnection, utility scale best facilities must demonstrate interconnection or accessory use to energy facilities. So you got to show that you're going to be able to get it on the grid or,
Makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, that was a good thing to mention.
Useful.
Detailed electrical and design plans. The applicant shall provide detailed plot plans showing detailed electrical designs and demonstrating all use standards are integrated within the design plans and individual module best units. So that was not in our original edition. Seems like a good addition in there.
Now that Todd pointed that out, there's several of these that either they oscillate between BESS or utility scale BESS.
Okay.
So perhaps having all these under a utility scale. Save you from having to say utility scale under every single paragraph. But
Yeah,
several water storage and floodplain, those are for all battery storage, but I think it's all intended for utility.
Yeah,
I feel like you need to go through and pull out anything that applies to all cases, whether it's residential or,
Yeah.
you know, that applies to all, and then have a separate section that's just utility. Cause it's kind of like, it's written as like all of these, but then you
Right.
just go back and read the exceptions part.
That came from when we had the tier 1, tier 2 distinction. And so he had a whole section that was like, this applies to all.
Mhm.
And then the other section, it was just for the
Yeah.
utility scale. So good point. Yeah, we
Or
gotta
that
go back and
integration.
find all those occurrences. Or figure out a way to preemptively put at the top of the outline that this applies to utility scale. All right. Very well.
Or yeah, like, does any of this apply to residential? Does any of this apply to commercial industrial?
Well, that is something that's up there in the, remember under exceptions, B, point 2. So yeah, I got a note I don't know how to work through to harmonize that and get that straightened out, but I understand, I think.
Like, should this entire specific standard just be utility scale best?
I think so, although, I mean, what about a commercial? I'd be, a commercial system under 100 kWh that's tied
That's
to
where
a
I
business.
think there needs to be a determination of whether we are going to consider all commercial accessory systems as an allowed use. I think if we consider them allowed use and that's what is decided, then yes, I think it excludes that. If we don't consider them an allowed use, then I think it would fall into some of these regulations.
Also, the commercials are always usually gonna be attached to a conditional use permit. That can be fleshed out in that process as well. But also the commercial accessory is meant to be that this is something that's gonna go through a conditional use permit process also.
And we can set the zones where it's permitted and not as well. So commercial wouldn't be res one, probably. Yeah. So I get that. Let's remember that.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, we just hadn't fleshed it all out yet.
Yeah.
And we don't have a size on the commercial.
It's
It is defined in the,
anything over 100 kWh turns into the utility scale. So it'd have to be under that.
So between 25 and 100,
yeah, I think we were talking about the 25 kilowatt net metering that you brought up.
or between 20, okay.
Yeah, you think about it though, anything over 100 kW is considered utility scale. Unless there's 75 kW, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't leave a lot of room for what would be considered accessory from res to utility, you know what I mean?
And maybe that number needs to be played with then.
I feel like that's where some sort of consultant would be the most helpful in determining these numbers that we're all just.
Or just even like a
Guessing at.
thing like DMEA has,
Or-
you know,
or
net metering
comparable.
standard that's this for residences, that helps. I don't know if they have any kind of net, do they do net metering for commercial?
So. I had asked this earlier, so 20 kW is frequently used as a residential threshold in fire and building codes. Many jurisdictions then allow larger aggregate residential installations when located in lower risk areas, garages, detached accessory structures, exterior, commonly capped at 40 kW and certain 80 kW in garages. The plans that La Plata County's moratorium language explicitly exempted residential facilities of less than 80 kWh. Whatever that's.
But that kind of considered multifamily units of sorts or something like a condominium, because they got a lot of condos down there.
And it's also an area with building codes. And that's one of the hurdles that we have.
I think 25 kW. Yeah,
Okay,
I really won't want to go back to that, but.
all right. Moving on. Defensible fire space. All utility best facilities must have a 30 feet defensible fire space around the exterior of the perimeter fence of the facility. Vegetation screening must be outside this defensible space. In addition to the exterior defensible space, best facilities must have defensible spaces between each unit to the minimum safety standard recommended by the best manufacturer. Good. This water storage, I really don't know about. There's another mention about water under the, fire and safety stuff. So keep that in mind. Best facilities must provide a water cistern or hydrant for firefighting at a minimum size of 20,000 gallons of water storage and be identified within site designs. Cisterns and hydrants must be accessible to use by local fire officials. So that comes from the second edition. The best operator shall be responsible for the full cost of all infrastructure improvements necessary to provide for adequate supply of water for fire suppression purposes. Completion and proof of such improvements shall be required prior to operation of a best regulated under the land use code.
Yeah, like the second. Like our original language
Yeah,
Yes.
rather than the addition.
yeah,
Well, also, we do have another section where we go in saying all sites have to have a custom engineered system to determine how much water they're using, rather than just doing some blanket statement.
I don't like that.
And that was one of the things I found in the other model I felt was contrary, because not all these units are the same, just throw a base number out doesn't really fit.
So who's gonna determine that? What is that?
If you go to the section for,
Page number.
yeah, I'm trying to find it here, sorry.
I think it'd be public health.
And find it, because we actually, this is the stuff that we wordsmith on our original version that we all really liked.
It's on page 9. Water supply for fire suppression. All utility scale BESS sites shall have a water supply for fire suppression purposes. The quantity of water required for the site shall be calculated by a professional engineer licensed by the state of Colorado. The quantity shall be sufficient to serve the fire suppression demands, the worst case scenario model.
Is
All
there a reason we need this water thing
At all up
in
there?
both places?
No, I think maybe not.
No, not with that language back there, so.
How come there's so much emphasis on water? My understanding is that these Teslas start on fire, water is wasted. How come we're not talking
I
about?
think they use water for two purposes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is to prevent the spread of the heat transfer, but also to suppress the plume.
It's supposed to
Okay.
be meant to knock down some of the pollutants in the air that's spraying over it, trying to catch it with water and help keep some of those particles in that area rather than letting them disperse. So they'll like spray over the top, weighing down some of the heavier materials to keep it from dispersing.
Okay.
So just strike all of 0.4, and because it's
Yeah,
accounted for down
That's
below.
covered.
It's 20,000 gallons.
Although this
That's a
part,
spit in the bucket.
that's not highlighted about the full cost, we need to put it somewhere else. Like the infrastructure improvements necessary to provide that adequate water supply.
Yeah, because that, my theory was we strike the highlighted portion, because we still have to indicate they do have to put in the system. So that they're prepared, then we go further in the thing, it defines that system. But they need to know right up front, they have to put it in.
So just strike the highlighted portion and keep the other. All right,
So it's underwater storage, which if they put in a hydrant, I don't see why they would need water
just
storage.
put water.
Like
Strike
water
water.
access, maybe?
Water requirement.
Water infrastructure, all right.
Yeah, there's a good word.
Okay, thanks. Impermeable surface. This part didn't really get changed from the first edition we reviewed. Should we read through it all?
Nope.
Huh? Nope, good. Okay, number
You
6.
guys really nailed that down.
Drainage design study and stormwater management plan. Applicants are required to submit a drainage design study and stormwater management plan of the project area. I don't know why there's a comma between design study. I guess it's two different things. Design, comma, study and stormwater management plan of the project area. Demonstrating the changes to drainage patterns on the project site. Drainage design must show equivalent water retention basins for the size of the impermeable surface created as part of the project facility. Is that coherent?
It was missing from ours. I saw that as a really important add, because you are talking about where you place it. You don't want it just getting washed out in the first rain. You know, and stuff like that, which we didn't address in our first version, so I found that to be something that we lacked in our original version. Whether it's placed in our place, I don't know, but I feel that language wasn't addressed in our first model.
Good.
Uh-huh.
Site disturbances, the battery energy storage systems must be designed to minimize site disturbances. Reestablishment of all disturbed areas, including the construction access, shall maintain historic drainage patterns and permeable ground cover and minimize environmental impacts. Temporary and permanent erosion control measures shall be used as necessary to minimize erosion of the site. Good as is. I would suggest that we can strike traffic study and plan because that's just part of a conditional use permit.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
I just
started to find that in.
brought it over though because it was there. And then construction documents, so it just references NFPA 4.2.1.1. As the minimum, at a minimum, the construction documents shall contain elements identified in that section of NFPA 855. Any need to look at that or care about that? I just think that'd be good, okay? Noise standards, again, we already went through that, so it's just the, kind of state standard.
Yeah.
Agency coordination, this was a new thing from addition two. The applicant must provide documentation of coordination with relevant local, state, and federal agencies. We kind of do this really anyway. I mean, when we send this out to referral agencies, but I guess having it in here like this makes it so that it's part of the application packet from the outset. We don't have to like send it out to referral
And
agencies.
wait for them to respond.
Right.
They can bring it to us ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's other agencies that we need to include. Delta County local fire districts, Colorado State Electric Board, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Colorado State Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. Sound adequate? All right. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
I don't know.
Well, that is a bit of a normal part of our process too. If it's in like the 3 mile, whatever, around the municipality, we send it to them as a referral agency, but we could add that too.
DMEA should probably be on there.
Okay. That,
Hopefully they already saw that.
I got those notes.
all right. Safety and security standards. Fencing and screening. Best facilities must demonstrate the minimum federal safety fencing standards in their site designs with a minimum fence height of 8 feet. Now, I don't know where they got that from. I don't know if anybody knows anything about
I
that.
couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it in the NFPA.
Yeah, what is the
855.
federal safety fencing standard?
That's what I looked for and I couldn't
And
find,
in there.
I couldn't find anything to justify the 8 feet height.
So that second version, they were instructed to not reference 855. So
Okay.
a lot of times they threw in like federal and state as like in lieu of that. What we originally had in the original version was a perimeter fence or wall with a minimum height of 6 feet.
Actually, I think we struck wall because it has to be see-through.
Yeah. All perimeter and on-site fences shall be constructed with non-combustible materials. This is what we had in the original one. And that was all we had with, I think kind of with regard to fencing. But this second version had a lot more. The interior of the fencing around the best components shall be void of flammable materials. Well, that's kind of like what we had before. Any vegetation screening must be set back a minimum of 30 feet from fencing. Didn't we already say that up
Yeah, is
above?
that redundant?
Yeah. Plus,
Yeah.
we also state in ours that the entire interior of the facility is to be non-flammable material, so not capable of being caught fire.
It seems like we could almost go back to our original, and I don't know if we care about 6 or 8 feet.
It's fine. Either Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, EPA, nor NFPA or the International Fire Code, nobody has a.
Fence height.
Yeah. Nobody references.
I couldn't find it.
Fencing problem.
Yeah, here we go, so not right entry.
I mean. I think 8 feet probably sounds,
Bigger?
I mean, you don't want to think that that's. Up right over that. 8 feet sounds adequate to me.
Because I think we had 6 foot further into our.
Yeah, the first one was 6 feet.
I do know in some residential areas, you can't have a fence over so many feet, like 8 feet, like in towns and stuff. You get some people that wanna put up a higher fence and they can't do it.
You know, when you think about what's the standard height for like a deer fence that we don't want? If it's in an area that it's not gonna be affecting residential areas when we do have wildlife.
8 foot might be needed.
8 foot may be good.
And you start getting deer and elk jumping into your substation.
So,
I don't know if we need point D at all. If integrating unique design or screening beyond the standard security fencing, a screening plan and detailed design shall be included as part of the application.
I don't even know what that.
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's why I don't think we need
Like
it.
HOA. approve the Material of and color of your fence.
Yeah. I mean, the original version said a perimeter fence, between strike or wall with a minimum height of 6 feet. We could change that to 8 feet. All perimeter and on-site fences shall be constructed of non-combustible materials. We could go with that.
Yeah.
Go with that. All right. I'll take and replace it with that.
And I keep forgetting to strike wall, and we keep talking about, I keep forgetting to get the line through, if you could catch that one for me.
Yeah, I'll say replace with the original strike wall. Increase to 8 feet. All right. All right.
Striking the whole fencing screen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Cause it's later addressed.
I think it's got some redundancy in it and it's just verbose and we definitely don't need a whole lot more words.
so did this consultant agree with everything that we're leaving in here, or did he give notes if he would strike?
We never talked.
Oh, okay.
We talked to a couple of times, but they just really, they very much generalized the first edition we had. They took out 855 and then they would throw in all federal and state in a very general way.
And up to the commissioners and body to determine.
And then they tried to take some of the real particular kind of points out of 855 and just make them explicit points and it just is way better to reference 855. So we're pretty adamant about that. Like, I don't know, attorneys need to figure out a way that that's acceptable.
It just said they have to model the wording on how we reference it, that we're not a document, however, it's the model or it's lawyer
The
speak,
expectation.
so. Okay.
Well, security. I think we went through that, before. If it's not highlighted in yellow, it's in the first edition. We had a note under the access, the last sentence under access, it says access roads shall be plowed to allow for fire protection district access during winter months. And the note says change to access roads shall be maintained per county road standards.
So that you're not on a 4-wheeler trail getting to the best facility.
That
Was something that I was very adamant about, that we have standards that are, the capacity is for fire mitigation.
Do we want to change or do we want to add that? Because do we also want it plowed?
Well, it has to be plowed, you aren't gonna get up a foot of snow.
That would be part of the.
Yeah, the county road standards have.
Is it?
I don't know if we mentioned plowing though, actually, I think that is important to add in there because.
Well, surely not, because when we got snow, like none of these.
No,
county roads-
and we also don't want to make where the county's responsible for plowing them. This is incumbent upon the developer to keep that road plowed and maintained for access for emergency.
All right, I'll add the suggested change from our last time we met in September on that, and then we wrote that note, but we'll keep the plowing in the winter. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So we can go past signage, is that all right? I mean, there's a lot on signage. Like a lot,
Yeah.
like. Think it's adequate.
But we have to do public safety.
So now we're down to hazard mitigation analysis, and how are we doing on time? How is everybody doing? How are we doing, Kate?
So it's 6:50 right now.
Okay,
We have, quite a bit of yellow left.
do you want to skip down? I mean, we talked a little about the hazard mitigation and plume modeling. We already kind of went over hazard mitigation analysis and plume modeling when we were
Yeah,
considering that.
31
So, there's the new addition there of notification of mineral interest owners. Yeah, that was a unique thing in the second version that I thought, well, we better,
You don't call that out specifically.
better do that.
What is that?
If there's anybody that's got mineral rights, I guess, you know, in the land where they're putting the best facility, they need to be,
Yeah, we're to-
Is there a? Just where it's
I
going?
don't know. if it's-
So, usually means
Right, you're saying that, but like, who are we notifying? Just wherever
They-
it's going.
Mineral rights aren't always necessarily owned by the property.
No, they're not.
a lot of mineral rights in this county that is like 2/3 or 3/75. Cause it just keeps going and going.
President, for this sort of thing, for any other development standards,
We
other
should,
specific uses?
we should.
We do have mineral notification up in the land.
And it may already account for it too, I don't know. But I think what's unique in this is the last sentence, a draft letter must be submitted as part of the permit application with documentation of outreach.
The key here is to know what, they need to come to us with their ducks in a row so that we can properly assess the situation.
A draft letter with documentation of outreach. To me, that like, do they come here with their draft and we approve their draft and then they do the outreach, or do they do the outreach and tell us they did it? And that's not a draft.
I think that's what it means. It's a good point. Draft maybe indicates that the outreach has not occurred, because that's a draft.
Yeah.
Right. So proof of communications over.
It's-
A letter must be submitted as part of the permit.
Or documentation of outreach must be submitted.
And proof of notice. I mean, that's.
Well, I think you have a draft of the letter that was sent. But you don't have every letter that was sent to all the mineral owners, and then the documentation of outreach, so like a certificate of mailing. Here's the letter that went out to all these people.
So a
Maybe a
copy,
copy,
Yeah, a
a
copy.
copy,
Well, each letter would be a little different because it would be addressed to each specific.
okay.
So you just have a draft of the letter with the certificate of mailing that this
Maybe
letter was
certified mail.
certified, whatever, however it was.
okay,
Depending on if there's more than one mineral.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's the way it doesn't
Okay.
have needs.
Great, good job, Dave. So it's just like a master copy.
Yeah.
Of a
Yeah.
template that kind
Here's
of
the
is
template of
used.
the letter that went to all these people.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. We might want to make that somehow clear to our.
Yeah.
That's a good interpretation. I like it. All right. Worth keeping in?
Yes.
Okay. Emergency and hazard mitigation plan. I think we can get down through that and maybe probably stop before the performance and financial surety. What do you think? Would that be a good stopping point? We can maybe get into that too, but honestly, the two versions on that part were pretty different and I haven't had time to really review them.
Okay,
And
sure, yeah.
I kind of have that over in Robbie's court a little bit too, and the attorneys to look at those two versions to see if, you know, what we want to pull together there.
Sure, yeah, great.
That part's complicated and I don't really know how it should be done. All right, emergency and hazard mitigation plan, NFPA 855 again. I think that was all. Plus the review agencies down at 0.9 that was in the original version.
What's the blue line?
The blue, huh?
What's the blue line?
So the blue is highlighted because there were specific, well, the elements that are referred to, you know, in NFPA 55, at the time, I highlighted it blue because I hadn't reviewed them to see if they were counted, the second version's list of things. They put things like what needs to be in the plan needs to be project team and details on the project design, general emergency contact details, proposed emergency access, potential fire hazard scenarios, potential severe weather scenarios. I don't think all that needs to be added because it's either accounted for in the hazard mitigation analysis or in FPA 855. So, but at the time I didn't know. Plan updates. Best facilities must have an approved emergency response plan prior to the construction of the facility. The emergency and hazard mitigation plan must be updated on a 5-year basis. I did get a comment from one of the fire district chiefs who reviewed that second version and suggested that that should be 2-year. So
I mean, you look at I know this is different, but like the solar field down by the old LP. Like that place changes ownership with every new fad in the market.
okay.
And so I think every 5 years is long.
Yeah, this
Maybe every 5 years or whenever
Ownership change.
ownership or management changes.
Steve Hansen wrote, change the emergency plan updates from 5 years to every 2 years. That way points of contact and companies change. I feel 5 years is a long time to reevaluate plans.
So, and I think it could be every 2 years or change of ownership.
Because I think there's also a part as we get further down where we indicate also any change of the facility requires an update. So if they decide to replace a unit or add a unit, that triggered that change be in there. I think we have that further down the line.
Well, because I mean, like you could even look at the one that is going to probably go out on the one out here in Garden Mesa or Garden Mesa one. Like a new investor comes in and decides they're gonna buy this from whoever owns it
And then
now.
we'll change it out.
Like that could happen 5 times in the next 5 years, you know? So I think some trigger of change of ownership should be.
All right, noted. Change of ownership or change to the facility if that's accounted for later. And every 2 years,
Mhm.
we like?
Yep.
Okay. Fire suppression system, best facilities must have emergency fire suppression systems integrated into the facility and or individual containers that are compatible with the applied technology and meet state and federal safety standards. Again, meet state and federal safety standards. We could probably take that out if we've already referenced in FPA 855, yeah?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Alarm system. Best facilities must have an alarm system integrated into their designs and integrate those plans into their emergency response and hazard mitigation plans. Fire defensible zone, a fire defensible zone of at least 10 feet shall be integrated into the facility design outside the fence, outside of the fence and within the fence, such as to prevent any fire from spreading through the facility.
No, that's a different section.
Yeah, we address that as saying no vegetation or brittle stuff inside the facility. And we also state 30-foot perimeter buffer outside. So this is definitely returning.
So it's probably redundant. It probably also
Also doesn't,
has standards that are better in 855. Just strike it.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
we take it.
6, monitoring. Best facilities must be monitored either on site or off site. I wonder if some of this is not redundant in 855 though. I mean, if it is, then we should strike it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be either on site. Again, they wrote these because they cut out 855.
Yeah.
On site or off site, 24 hours per day and 365 days a year. In the case of emergencies, equipment and facility structures must be able to have emergency shut off from the operations monitoring site. Again, I'm betting that's all in 855. Water supply for fire suppression. All utility scale best sites shall have water supply for fire suppression purposes. The quantity of water required for the site shall be calculated by a professional engineer licensed by the state of Colorado. The quantity shall be sufficient to serve the fire suppression demands of the worst case scenario modeled in the hazard mitigation analysis. We liked that before, we like it still. And then water access. All best sites must have access to a water cistern or hydrant to fight any potential fires. Local fire departments must have access to the water cistern or hydrant to be able to utilize in the case of a nearby emergency.
I'm sorry, so I'm confused.
Yeah,
I apologize. So on the water supply, that is addressed in the FPA
okay,
about what they have to have.
okay.
Is that in line with the rest of what we're doing with the FPA?
Again, all the highlighted portions come from that second version that did not account for, so I think we need to review carefully if it's already accounted for in the section of NFPA incorporated by reference, then we just take it out, so we don't have all this.
I'm also not sure if NFPA has the language, but we say it shall be, each site shall not just be NFPA, it'll be where you have a professional engineer for that particular facility. Instead of a standard, each facility has its own engineer requirements for the facility. I don't know that that language is in 855.
That's not.
Because this is why we put it in, was every site should be unique and specific to its needs, rather than a bulk statement. And that was one of the reasons why this paragraph with the "you shall be calculated and done by a professional engineer."
Okay.
Because I don't know if the
This
bulk
refers
standard.
to 1142. Because I don't remember that. So I don't care either way. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Because I don't know, I just, that was our concern, is we didn't want bulk standards in place of unique standards and requirements for the facility itself.
So definitely number 9 we'll keep because we're specifying that our Office of Emergency Management and our local emergency planning committee, which we still have yet to form, are going to review the emergency operation plan. I don't know if we need to go through that because that was in the previous version and we were good with it. Do you want to, Todd, do you want to say something?
So real quick on the water supply for fire suppression, so in the FPA 13 specifically covers fire suppression systems.
Okay,
If we're going to reference a standard that we want these systems modeled by, would it maybe be worthwhile to include that one there?
all right. I'll just,
Dictates the size. And then FPA 855 requires sprinkler protection. The water supply must be suitable for the design density and duration required by NFPA 13 for the size and fire hazard classification of the energy storage system installation.
Are they referring to the unit itself or the whole facility? Because that's, I think that's what I'm worried about is they have requirements for the units that are fire suppression. But is there also a fire suppression specific to the whole facility?
I think that's a good question because it also does reference a UL listing, which I would think would be more specific to the
There for
unit.
the unit.
Where maybe the NFPA 13 is for the location or the
They hadn't drilled down on that yet. I was just concerned about getting caught up in that. The units are supposed to be designed to deliver fire suppression as part of their certification for the unit. But are we encompassing the entire site as a fire?
855 is talking about the entire site. It talks about ESS units, groups, maximum stored energy of kWh. So it's talking about groups. And it says over the area of 2,500 square feet. And the design area, so it is talking about a sprinkler system. It's covering the.
that's 13.
No, this is what you guys want, 855
Oh, okay.
sprinkler systems. 4.9.2.
now maybe NFPA 55 in itself provide requirements by reference to NFPA.
It does. Sprinkler system shall be installed in accordance with NFPA 13 or equivalent.
Sprinkler system?
Yep.
4.9.2 of 855.
Inside the
The whole
modules,
facility or just the module?
inside the module.
Outside the module. And then outside the module, it talks about gallons per minute, square feet of
Flow
flow
rate
rate.
requirements
So I'm hearing
So it
that
sounds
the
like it's covered.
NFPA references we have are covering inside and facility. Okay,
Okay.
I'm only seeing this one reference up here at the head, 4.3.2.14. Where were you talking about, Jacob? That-
Well, yeah, I feel like that section needs to be expanded or looked at what section we're actually talking about. This was 4.9.2 is sprinkler systems. Yeah, in 855. 4.9.4 is water supply.
So you are gonna comb through this, and if there's any redundancy in 855, you'll
Yeah.
likely,
Skinny it down.
I mean, they do talk about HMAs, which we should call out. But other than that, I mean, they have stuff like signage, they have egress, ingress, sprinkler
Yeah.
systems. So perhaps, decoupling, yeah, it's 14 pages on this,
Yes,
quite a bit.
I agree. We can cut it out because we already got it in NFPA. Do it.
Bit overkill.
Yeah, we'll comb through it for that.
Send you, I'll send you some reading material.
Oh, cool.
Light reading on Sundays.
All right. Well, why don't we just read this last point then on emergency responder training and cost recovery agreement? The unhighlighted part was from the original, and the addition here and highlighted says best developers must provide first responder equipment, materials, and annual training starting at the outset of the development in regard to best facility emergency response. Provided equipment must be reviewed for expiration at the annual trainings. So that's, you know, a new addition to what was
Were they
there.
training? All emergency response, you're training fire and EMS. and
I think it's meant for whatever the facility could possibly need. But it isn't really clear.
No, it's not super clear.
Prior, it says up here in the unhighlighted part, I guess, as a condition of approval. For any utility scale best, the operator shall enter into a written agreement with the county to reimburse the county and or its designated emergency response entities. For the reasonable cost of annual training specific to emergency response procedures related to safety hazards of BESS, including but not limited to thermal runaway, toxic gas release, and fire suppression.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit over.
And just maybe I gotta work on the language of harmonizing that into it a little better, I guess.
It doesn't talk about, it talks about the reasonable cost of annual training, but does not address equipment or materials.
So that's the new kind of beneficial addition from the highlighted
I
portion.
don't know if you'd want materials on the site if it explodes with a waste of material, you know, in the first.
Or do they just have to pay for those materials that are stored at the emergency response facility? Do they reimburse for in the event of
Yeah,
use?
I like what we had before, where it's talk to the county, establish a ponds team. And train them and get them what they need to respond to the mess. Rather than if they have to keep it on the site, there's a chance it's gonna, we lose the lead. Yeah. We want the first responders to have the equipment.
But we don't really reasonable cost it. We didn't
So I
really
would say
cover-
of anything, equipment and materials.
Okay,
Procurement of equipment and materials.
And I also like the language in here that caught my eye was at the starting of the onset of the project. Not when you're done. And I found we didn't have that. Because that goes on to the onset for when you start the development of this project. They're already in position prepared while they're building it, and we didn't have that language. That was my main catch on that, was it was saying on the onset, so we're preparing prior to construction.
so Kate, I'll add that the reasonable cost of annual training, equipment and materials specific to emergency response. And then that covers part of that.
Yeah.
And then the part about at the outset,
Of development.
So what we did have in the first version was that the agreement shall be executed prior to the commencement of operations. So maybe instead of that, it should say shall be executed prior to the commencement of construction. Or at the commencement, or in conjunction with the commencement of,
Starting.
Construction. yeah.
Covers it.
It was good wording.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where we can put that phraseology down
Yeah.
there in place of prior to commencement of. Okay. All right.
Okay,
You
is that a
think
good
that's
stopping
good?
point?
Yeah.
Not like a ton more, but you said it's complicated.
Yeah, that other surety
Complicated
stuff
part.
is really like mind explanation stuff. It's.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Financial performance and financial surety and then decommissioning are kind of like what's left. So
Yeah. Okay,
In the past, we've kind of botched those and kind of minds, just like
Yeah.
willy-nilly throw out figures. So
Right. Because that's what it's, as you try to read and figure it out, I mean, this is really above my pay grade. We start talking financial assurities, reclamation bonds, then, decommissioning. It's complicated stuff.
Dave, do you have real good experience with that?
A little bit, but not a lot.
Get the phone call.
I'll try to get the portion from the second edition that you don't see in your printed version and maybe send those out to you, compare and contrast, but I don't know, I'll do something to try to set it up for the next time we review these. In the next session, we will have some presenters.
It's gonna be January 27th, right?
Yeah.
28th, sorry.
And I'll probably share the draft we got with them so that they can kind of speak to it in some way or another.
Only addition I didn't see was a setback from public schools. We do have that. The only other place we have that is for intensive agriculture, so maybe just copy and paste those. They're pretty big. They're half a mile from the school or up to that.
Okay.
Where are those at?
In intensive agriculture.
Intensive agriculture.
Yeah.
and then we're gonna have always a fun time. We need to actually review table 2B and make our decisions about which periods, then what. Seems like we kind of know that they're conditional use permits,
Yeah.
but where those Cs get stuck in table 2B.
You pick where they get stuck.
Well, sure, yeah.
It'll be.
All right. Well, thank you all for
Thank
your time and commitment and your participation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for all the work you're doing on synthesizing this and
After that, Wendell asked what we were talking about tonight, and I told him that we were reviewing the mess, and he wanted me to relay. Thank you all for working so hard. Doing things.
Can you do it in your best Wendell impression?
Wendell, hard.
We're in the agenda.
Just tell them, Dad.
no, I think we are wrapped up unless anyone else wants to request, refer, comment. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
See you all.
And then, so the first meeting in February is annual meeting with new members, if we have new members by then.
Yeah, we have one. Actually,
Oh,
here
wonderful.
tonight, so I'm gonna do yourself.
You're all-
Off the record.
Well, off the record. It hasn't been,